Welcome back to the show. I'm Kim Foster, and I'm an MD turned coach, a business mentor for my fellow health and wellness coaches, and also the founder of the Wellness Coach Academy. So, when you are creating your website or building a sales page or a landing page or anything along those lines, one of the things that you need to do is write the words that are going to go on those pages. Now, the official term for the words that go on your website or sales pages is copy. And copywriting is a whole skill set. And most of us are just not born with that skill set. But the good news is that you can learn how to write effective copy and copy that connects. And honestly, it's not just something you can learn, but something you need to learn. Because if your words and your marketing language are not crafted to actually connect with people and motivate them to take action, then your business is really going to struggle. So, to help us with this, I have a guest with me today who is an expert in this field, and she's got a lot of great tips and tricks to share. Lucy Bedewi is a personality-driven copywriter who specializes in crafting copy for businesses who really want to stand out and scale. She has worked with a whole variety of different companies, ranging from growing solopreneurs to multi-million dollar businesses. And I recently sat down with Lucy to pick her brain on a number of topics related to copywriting, like cultivating your brand voice and connecting with your prospects on a truly emotional level, and the common mistakes that she sees people making with copy and the very simple fixes that you can do right away. So without further ado, let's get right into that conversation. Well, hey, Lucy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into our conversation today because we are going to take a deep dive into all things copywriting, which is just something that I absolutely love. I just love geeking out on writing and, crafting copy that's going to help to sell and marketing through your writing and all of those things. And I think that you're probably the same, Lucy. Am I right?
Oh yeah, geeking out is an understatement.
Awesome. Now, before we get into everything, though, I would love to just give our audience a bit of context. So if you could just introduce yourself and give us a bit of your backstory, like how did you get into this work? I'd love to hear about that.
Absolutely. So my name is Lucy, and I'm the founder and copywriter behind the brand My Right Hand Woman. And I have a little bit of a non-traditional path. So I started my business straight out of college. I've never had a corporate job or really any full-time position. I graduated into a pandemic. So it was very much like if you didn't have a job offer lined up before the whole world went crazy, you were not getting a job. So I figured this is my chance. I'm totally cooped up at home. This is my chance to go big, fail hard. And I started My Right Hand Woman after dabbling with a few other online service provider positions like social media, graphic design. If you ever see me design something, you'd be like, why did you think that was a good idea? And then I just landed on my love of writing. And then I combined that with my marketing degree and my mission for helping women write with a lot of personality so that they can grow really big businesses that fill their heart. And here we are. I know I obviously skipped a few steps in the interest of time, but I'm sure we're going to keep dialing into my business and also how you can write copy that's conversational, that's fun to write, and really exemplifies who you are and your brand voice.
That's awesome. So you have a degree in marketing, which is
I do.
That's a cool underpinning. That I'm sure gives you a good solid foundation. But then the craft that you are using and your sort of your medium is writing now.
Yes, I've always been a writer. I was a content writer before a copywriter. Even as a teenager, I was writing for major publications. Like I wrote for a food magazine. And I remember I would always go viral because I would try like these horrible diets that no one should do. And I would do them for 2 weeks and I would like write about my experience and be like, I blacked out on the way to class today. And that kind of stuff just got so many views. I was definitely like demonizing diet culture because when people were reading these articles, they're like, this girl's dying. I don't think we should do the Beyonce or the Kim Kardashian, like crazy restrictive diets. So it was definitely a lot of fun and a lot of experimentation, but that's kind of how I got my start and really loving to connect with people through writing.
That's hilarious. That is kind of a fun and funny way to get started.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's cool. I'm sure you actually learned a lot about that too, like about the psychology of connecting with people and what makes people like sit up and pay attention. And that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think persuasion is just such an interesting topic because you can really look at it from like a psychological lens, but you can also look at it as like, all we're doing is just talking to human beings. That's all business is. So it really takes the pressure off of always feeling like you have to have the perfect marketing all of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's get into this topic. I really want to start by talking about brand voice. So, brand voice, I think, is a concept that a lot of people might have heard of, but they might be not particularly clear on what the concept, like what it actually means. So, what is brand voice? So, I would love if you could just kind of help us to understand brand voice a little bit, and then also, what are the most important aspects of a successful brand voice?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always just describe brand voice as the emotion and the personality that's kind of underpinning the way you're communicating with your clients. And that can look like a lot of things. If you feel like you're a really casual person, that could be you telling jokes and just being a little bit too real and very blunt. Or if you're a little bit more reserved, maybe you're an introvert, maybe you're a little bit more formal, that could look like a little bit more of an empathetic connection where maybe you're not fully going for it with the directness, but you're really bringing people into your world in a really genuine way. So as you can tell, those are just two examples. I mean, there's a million ways to have a brand voice, a million different personalities in the business world. But all your brand voice is how you quantify it.
Hmm.
So it's the tone that you basically say to yourself, okay, this is how I'm going to continue to speak to my audience in my social media captions, when I'm on video, in my web copy. And then that helps you create even more consistency in your branding. So when people see you've written maybe an email, they're like, oh, this email is coming from this coach. So they're able to continue to recognize you, and it makes consistency in your brand much easier.
And so how can people like find their brand voice? I think that there's kind of this concept, it's like this mysterious thing that you need to find is your voice. I mean, do you just choose it, or do you need to allow it to organically come out, or like what advice do you have for people who are struggling to really identify, what is my brand voice? What does make me stand out and make me unique?
Yeah, and I think it's both. I think there's an element of finding it, but there's definitely also an element of curating it. I think if you're like looking at any coaches or any businesses and you're like, wow, they've like nailed this brand voice, I'm willing to bet that they've done some like deep work with a copywriter in terms of maybe creating a style guide or curating this voice so it really resonates with their ideal client as opposed to just like stumbling into it.
Mm.
But with that being said, I think it's a combination of how you speak, who you are, your personality, and also the ideal client that you're looking to reach. I always say if you're looking to hit like a really like young, very rebellious generation, well, then what you're going to need to do is make sure your writing doesn't feel stuffy.
Mm.
Because even if you prefer like a more educated, formal tone, it's not going to resonate with the people you're trying to reach. So I always say it's a little bit of a dance with how your ideal client wants to be spoken to, but also the personality that you feel comfortable showing up as. Because, if you're a really rambunctious, loud person and you're showing up as this very like quiet, demure person, your business is never going to feel aligned to who you are.
Yeah, I like that approach. That makes a lot of sense. Like it's not just like a pure accident or completely like just randomly, whatever words come out of your mouth is that's your voice right there. But I like your use of the word curated there. And it's kind of like feels like it needs to be intentional because this is marketing, right? This is your business.
Yeah.
So you don't just want it to be like, blah, this is how I talk, but it needs to be intentional to connect with the people that you're trying to connect with. I think that's what if I'm getting that right.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right. I mean, great brand voices are made, they're not accidents.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what do you think makes for like a really, you said great brand voice or like a memorable brand voice, something that really kind of stands out and makes that true connection? What do you think makes for that?
I think some form of dissonance really helps. So, kind of what I mean by that is if you think about your favorite fiction book or maybe a character in a TV series that you're like, oh man, whenever this character's on screen, maybe you're like in love with them, you want to be them. Like, no matter what, they evoke something in you.
Hmm.
And I think that's usually comes because there's some complexity. It's not someone who's just perky and perfect all of the time. Maybe they're really struggling internally. Maybe they are a little bit more mysterious or they're mixing that mysteriousness with like a lot of kindness, so there's dimension. And brands are the same way. So brands should have multiple dimensions. If you're choosing things like friendly, empathetic, casual, Well, those are all great brand tones, but it's very easy to blend in with that as your brand voice. If you can take like a luxury brand, so you have like this very luxurious feel, but you have an edge. Maybe you're a little bit blunt. Maybe there's some
Hmm.
cursing in your copy. These are all things that we don't typically associate with luxury. We're like, oh, luxury is like snooty and uppity. So if you can kind of take those adjectives that are sometimes opposites and blend them into almost like a smoothie of a brand voice, you can create something that's just as magnetic as maybe, say, your favorite character or your novel or your TV series, because you're creating something that people can really hold on to and see themselves in.
I love that. I love particularly the analogy of the smoothie, of course. And I'm sure that that's going to resonate with our audience too. But yeah, like so what you're saying is that it's not really, you don't want to just go for like a one note brand voice where it's kind of like it's always cute and perky, like always that one thing, but just having actual dimension, which I think is probably reflects what humans are like, right? Like that
Yeah.
would really more replicate a real human being, because if it's always like just a single note, always the same kind of voice, then that's going to feel like, did a robot write this
Yeah.
or was there like a real person here? Even the I think even if people probably couldn't identify that that was what was kind of weird about it, but to have that layers in there to reflect that a real human was behind the keyboard here and was actually writing, and that real human has different elements, like different facets to their persona and personality and, all that kind of stuff. So I love that permission, because I think that people, especially when they're like branding and marketing, they feel like, okay, I have to decide on my brand and then always be, in alignment with that, and like always
Yeah.
be the same, show up the same. But that's actually not true. And I love that. And I haven't actually heard that from too many people. Most people talk about like, being always in alignment and same brand colors and like all that kind of stuff, right? But you really
Mhm.
want to have dimension to your brand and your voice.
Yeah, I mean, your brand is a living, breathing entity and it's going to evolve. And of course, just like how you have a core and there's some things that you've been doing since childhood that like are never going to change. Maybe you jumped rope every day as a kid and that's still the number one workout you're doing because it's just how you express yourself. So I think it really comes down to you have a core of your brand, and those are things like your values, your pillars, what you stand for, how you're different. Those
Mhm.
should never change. But the things like colors change, colors come into style, fonts change, design changes, copy changes, the language we use. I mean, I don't know if you've been on Urban Dictionary, but we have like words coming
Yeah.
up every single day. So that kind of stuff in your brand should evolve and it shouldn't be rigid every single day. I mean, your brand is allowed to laugh, cry, whatever it is, because, at the end of the day, it is a human on its own, especially if you're doing connection-based marketing.
That's awesome. I love that. So, I mean, we're talking about copywriting, and obviously the purpose of copywriting is to, market and sell, right? Like to convert, or, whatever it is that your purpose is. Is that like, that's my understanding of copywriting. Maybe for people who are maybe we should have started here, but like a little bit confused, like
To the beginning.
what's copywriting? Yeah. Like what is that actually? Can you define that for us just to be, so that we're clear?
Yeah. So the way I define copy, and I think this might actually be the dictionary definition too, but I have not Googled my own profession in a long time. But essentially, it is writing that is meant to elicit action.
Mm,
So instead of writing that's meant to be read or enjoyed, say like, an informational blog or a book, it's writing that's meant to make people do something. That
mm.
thing could be join your email list. It could be give you money. It could be give you a follow on Instagram. Instagram gets a little murky because that's a little bit more what I consider content writing. But
Right.
it's really getting people to continue to move through your world.
Nice. Okay, that's very clear. So then what is the secret to writing copy that actually gets people to take that action? Like what's the secret sauce there? How do we actually do that? Because that seems like a pretty, I mean, it's an important task. It's kind of a big task. It might be a tricky task, like just through your words to get people to actually do something. So tell us, what are some tricks? What are some secrets to actually making that happen?
Yeah, so there's definitely like the on paper secrets that I can just briefly go through, and then maybe some of the secrets that I've kind of uncovered. So the main thing when you're trying to persuade someone to do something, the first thing you want to make sure is that you're clear. I think we know who we are. Like, I know I'm a copywriter, you know your job title. So it feels very odd for us to be like, this is who I am. But
Mm.
if that's not present on your website, or you're not telling people like what they're actually going to get out of programs, they're not going to be able to connect with your why because they have no idea what the heck you're selling. So that would be my number one tip. It sounds so baby basics, but really clarity is where a lot of people actually lose potential clients, because those clients just don't really know what's going on. And it's a very easy fix. So I would say that's definitely number one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then number two on paper would have to be just really creating an air of you could do this through cleverness. You could do this through humor. You could do this through FOMO. But there has to be some kind of pull that gets people to take action now.
Mm.
I don't mean this in like a marketing bro tactic way. I think we can definitely get into that space when we start talking about like psychological tactics. I just mean it in a way of like, what would get you to join something? Maybe go look at your favorite websites or that skincare brand that you're like 100% every time they launch a new product, it's like wall it out. Like, why do you feel that way? And then
Mm.
take that you learn and apply it to your own copy.
That's a great exercise. Like, 'cause I do that sometimes. When I can feel that emotional hook, like something, whatever it is that just made me like feel a thing and feel like, okay, I need to get that or I need to do that. I'm like, what was it that actually made me feel that? And we can all do that because we all go through our day, right? Like the next time that you encounter a marketing message, just pay attention to, like if it made you feel a thing, like made you feel kind of that like impulse to go and do something or buy it or whatever, just really see if you can dissect, well, what was it? Like what button did they push there? Because that's
Yeah.
just such, you can just learn and educate yourself all day, like every day kind of thing. It's just such a great way.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you also just raised like a really great thing. And if you can't tell, like sometimes it's really hard to be like, well, okay, I bought this skincare because like, it's good skincare, like, and that's totally valid. But my guess is there's like subconscious things at play that are sometimes a little bit hard to realize. And I think a lot of it also just comes down to straight up connection.
Mm.
I'd be hard pressed to think that you're purchasing from any brands that don't write with a conversational tone. So I guess that would be like my Lucy secret sauce hack of the day, is to really make sure you're writing how you speak. Even if you have to record yourself to get that information, do it, because if you can talk to people on your website as opposed to write for them, they're going to be able to connect with you so quickly.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Or like voice dictate as your first
Mm-hmm.
draft, or
Oh,
something, right? So
yeah.
you can get that human, again, like we were saying before, like it needs to feel like it's coming from a human, because that's what creates that connection. People don't connect with like a bot or,
Yeah.
computer voice kind of thing. So yeah, I love that. And so what are some other, I know that, I mean, there's so much psychology to this, right? Like the ways that we are able to connect with people. And I totally hear what you're saying about, we're not going to get all bro marketing and like manipulative
Yeah.
and, that kind of thing. But there are psychological principles at play that help people to be motivated to do things. So how do you kind of like weave that into your writing, or what do you need to keep in mind as you're writing something with that intention of like, I want people to go and do something afterwards?
Yeah. So I think whenever you're like talking about the human mind in a way that you're trying to, it's not exactly like manipulating, but you're trying to like change the way people think. And sometimes it's for the better. I mean, you
Mhm.
look at like campaigns to get people to donate to really important causes. Like, I think the first mindset shift is to realize, selling has to happen if you're going to serve people and make their life better. So I think a lot of the times I see mindset blocks where people are almost scared to sell because they're like, well, I'm someone who heals and I'm someone who helps.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm not someone who sells. And I'm like, no, it's a heals and sells, not a heals or sells. So that would be my first like big mindset shift that I'd love to just give everyone here. And then in terms of these psychological things that we've been talking about, I think a lot of it comes down to knowing where your ideal client is at.
Mhm.
And when I say knowing, I don't mean intuitively speculating, which I think it's really easy to be like, okay, my client wants to lose weight. So let me write a sales page about a weight loss program. And I know that they're going to want to lose 10 pounds. So let me make that the transformation. So you might be talking to people who want to get that desired result, but what if that's not what they want? What if they're moms who want more energy? Because by the time they drop their 3-year-old off at preschool, they come home and then they're like totally pooped and they like can't run their business if they're entrepreneurs, or they can't even like make it to the grocery store. So it's really important that to talk to your ideal client and to really resonate with them, you know exactly what they're thinking and feeling. And you get that through market research.
Yeah, I love that. That's so important. And I'm always telling people to do that too, because, we can kind of guess and intuit and think about like, okay, well, in my shoes, this is what I felt, this is what I experienced. But
Mm-hmm.
rather than guessing or trying to like figure it out, or even just with a coach or with a colleague, those conversations are helpful, but you really got to get out there and talk to your actual ideal client and let them tell you what they are struggling with, what they want, what their goals are. And I mean, you can tell me what you think about this too, but like getting them to use their words, obviously, so that those are the words. Like if people say, that they want to drop 10 pounds rather than release excess weight, like what words, what
Yeah.
actual phrases are they using? And then that stuff I think needs to show up in your copy. But tell me what your take on that is.
Oh, yeah, I make word walls for every offer that I have. Because if you think about it, if someone buys from you, they would love to tell you why they purchased from you. Like all the time when people hire me for like say a VIP day, they slide into my DMs and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I just booked a VIP day because of this reason, this reason, this reason." And I'm like, "Thanks for the copy."
That's gold.
Because
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
I
perfect.
take those DMs and I put it on my word wall and I'm like, well, this is what my ideal client is actually saying for the reason they're hiring me. And that's more powerful than anything you can just think up off the top of your head.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. You can only get so far with using your own imagination. I mean, this is a
Mm-hmm.
creative thing like writing and, of course, yes, you need to use your own creative empathy and all of that kind of stuff, but there's no substitute for actually getting the real words of your real ideal clients. So, no, that's awesome. That's a great reminder. So, what other things, like how else can we kind of use that, those psychological underpinnings and the understanding of what our actual client wants and kind of blend that into our copy to really make that impact.
Yeah. So when it comes to your copy, really what gets the results is not like the Zoom calls or the meal plans. It's the transformation. So it's what journey are you going to be taking your client on so that they can go from point A to point G or really wherever you want to get them to.
Mhm.
And that should be what's present in all of your copy. So what that means is making sure that you're adequately talking about their pain points, not in like a shaming way, but you're just like, hey, I see you where you are. You're connecting with them. But you're also really talking about those dream points, like this is where you want to be. I can get you here, showing them testimonials like, look who I also got here. And then from there, you can show them how it happens. Maybe if it's a course, you have modules. So it's really just thinking big picture. The details will come when they actually sign with you and you send them a welcome packet. The
Mhm.
sales page is just all about like, look, this is the transformation. This is what I can do for you.
That's great. Yeah, that's such a mistake that I see people making a lot is really getting kind of mired in the features, like
Mm-hmm.
what I'm including. Because, as an entrepreneur, you're thinking that. You're like, okay, I've got to include this many, like you said, Zoom calls and then this
Yeah.
workbook and this extra bonus thing and this meal plan. I'm thinking about what I need to include, but they are actually much less interested. They want to know like kind of the why, like why, what
Yeah.
am I going to get out of this? Like what's it going to be like on the other side? The route, the way that you get me there is
Yeah.
not as important as like where am I going to be at the end of this journey. So yeah, that's so important.
Yeah. And I would also just like to add in like a little comment about pain points, because I think this is a very misunderstood thing in the copy world. So, especially if you are in the wellness space, it's really, I think, easy as like we're thinking about our copy to say, like, oh, okay, our client's not currently okay with where they are in their wellness
Hmm.
journey. So, I need to talk about the pain points of them not feeling their best before I can show them what it's like to feel their best. And I think that's personally a very like black and white way of thinking. I think if you are working with people who are consistently unhappy with where they are in their wellness journey, that could be the way that you go with your copy. But I also think if you, let's say you're working with people who are fairly healthy. They feel like they eat their vegetables, they do all the things on paper, but they're still like struggling with brain fog. That's a very different clientele than the person who's just like on their couch every single day, like absolutely hating the way that they are in their health journey. So I would just be mindful of how much you're playing on these pain points, because the chances are your client might be really happy with where they are currently in their journey, but they're looking to you to elevate them even further. And
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're working with people who have resources, people who are very empowered purchasers, they're not purchasing from a place of pain, they're purchasing from a place of desire because they want to be even better. So that would just be a big thing that I would definitely caution people for making sure that your pain points are resonating with your client's actual pain.
Yeah, this is great. Talk to me a little bit more about this because I think that this is really important. A lot of people do struggle with knowing how much do I, make them feel the pain of where they're at. Like and a lot of because, we're all helpers and people trying to heal and make the world a healthier place. And so the last thing we want to do is like make people feel their pain by twisting the knife even more, right? And so I think a lot of people do struggle with that, but I like what you said because it feels more like, making sure that you are aware of who you are trying to attract. And do you want the people who are like have a bit at least of some of that aspirational thing, like they want things to get better, rather than the people who are, they need help too. Of course, they're really like the ones who are really, really struggling. But
Yeah.
but speaking to the people who are really at the bottom and twisting that knife, you know, talk to me a little bit more about like how that plays out and how you decide, what tone you're going to strike with your copy.
Yeah, I think it depends on the holistic business. I think I'm actually happy that we're living more in a world where the consumer is more empowered to purchase what they want as opposed to what someone's shoving at them for what they
Yeah.
need. And I mean, from a pure sales perspective, I mean, twisting the knife in anyone is just not very nice.
No.
But from a pure sales perspective, very few of us buy what we need. A lot of us buy what we want. So that's why I always tell people to dig into those desire points, because when it comes down to it, like you want someone to be like beaming with smiles and being like, I can't wait to invest in this coach. She's going to make me feel amazing. Not someone who has so much like, oh my God, I like absolutely hate these parts about me and I need someone to come save me. Because the problem is,
Mhm.
as a coach, you can't save people. You can hold all of the space in the world. You can just equip them with all of the tools, all of your knowledge, put your blood, sweat, and tears into someone to help them be better. But you really want people to invest in you when they are emotionally ready to come on this journey with you. And sometimes by digging into those pain points, you're going to attract people who just want to be fixed. And you're going to realize, I'm not really working with like soul aligned clients and I'm not quite sure why. If that is something that you're feeling, my guess would be you are saying things like you're burnt out or, those really strong words.
Yeah.
And if that's not the specific clientele that you're looking to work with, you might notice that there's some misalignment.
100%. I totally agree. Like you really got to think about when you are, because I think a lot of the advice out there is like really make them feel their pain and, but if you're
Yeah.
staying in that negative space for all of your marketing message, think about who it is on the other side of that that's going to resonate with that. And are those the people that you actually are wanting to connect with and attract? And, just really being mindful of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you put that perfectly. I love that. It's kind of a delicate balance, right? Like we do need to talk about the problems that people need solved and what they actually, the struggles that they're having. We need to talk about it. Otherwise, what are we doing? But then can't have, I don't think we can have all of our marketing message just on like pain and struggles and frustrations and things, but actually turning the flip side around and talk about what people really want. Exactly like you said, what do people really want? And sometimes they want amazing things that have nothing to do with like pain and struggles and frustrations.
Absolutely. And also, it's important to keep in mind that it's always a much harder sell convincing someone that they need the service you need
Mm.
versus going for the people who already know they want the service that you provide. And now they're just trying to figure out if you're the right person.
Yes, exactly. So make life easier on yourself.
Yes. Explaining the problem can be so hard.
Oh yeah, you can't. It's so hard to sell people on something that you like you up on high. I'm like, I think you need this. They're like, I don't. I don't want that. I want this other thing. So it's like upstream versus downstream. Which way are you
Yes.
going to go?
Make life easy.
Yes, exactly. Okay, I love that. So, what are some, like mistakes, some common mistakes that you see people making in their copy that just kind of you're like, oh, if you could just like fix this one little thing or do this a little differently, it just would be, change everything. So, what are some common copywriting mistakes that you see?
Yeah, I think a big one is like a structural mistake, which if you're making this mistake, rest assured that this is going to be the easiest fix ever, where just there's too much text visually.
Mm.
It's totally fine to have long form sales pages or long emails that tell stories, even though we have this idea that like long form doesn't convert anymore, the data says otherwise. But it's so important that you have headlines and sections and break up your copy so people can skim it if they're in the skimming phase of like, oh, let me see what this coach is all about. Or they can really like sit down, light the candle, read your whole long form sales page if they're just about ready to convert. Because, I'm sure when you've hired a service provider or something, when you're about ready to hire them, you like totally stalk them and read their whole website.
Yes.
So this way you're able to just capture everyone at different points of their journey. So that would be my number one mistake I see is people just write these college essays and I'm like, no, break it up.
Yeah, especially online, right? Like web copy, totally different thing, really. But yeah, lots of white space, headlines, subheads, bullet points, like all of that kind of
Yes.
stuff, just to create that visual interest. That's a great, and anyone can do that. Like you can take a block of text that you've written and then just break it up and make it. You're not even changing the words, just changing the structure. Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have another one, like common mistake that people make?
Yeah, I think another common mistake I see is a lot of people will write from their point of view. This is another very small one that's fixable. And I don't mean like writing physically like about yourself or telling too much about your story. I mean like actually using the letter I too much. So saying something like, I help blank do this. And I know those I help statements are like all over. And I would much prefer you just talk right to your ideal client and tell them how you help them. So I guess like if we were to do an example, if your coaching was, let's say like, I help new moms get back on their fitness routine by still being able to spend time with their families. So even though those are great and that's specific and you're talking to your ideal client, I would rather you just say like, hey, new moms, I know it's tough. I know you're busy, but fitness can't wait because your health is worth it. Just talk right to them. You don't need to say that you are the physical helper of that because that is implied. So I would say literally just take out the I's wherever you see a lot of like, I do this, I do that, I coach this, and then just say what you do.
Right. Like even a headline like you would love to get back on your fitness routine,
Yeah.
but you are struggling with like, juggling the kids and the soccer practice and all that sort of stuff. Like just really, because that I think really creates that connection of she's talking exactly to me and she's not talking about herself. She's talking about me. And that's music to all of our ears, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those are great tips. This has just been so great, Lucy. You've just shared so many gems and nuggets and awesome wisdom with us. And it's just been such a pleasure chatting to you. I would love, before we wrap up, just tell our audience where they can go to learn more about you and connect with you and, all of those good things.
Absolutely. So if you really resonated with the brand voice part of this conversation and you want a little bit of help, I have a free quiz. It's if you just go to findmybrandvoice.com, it'll tell you your brand voice adjectives and also how to write in those adjectives. So it's definitely, not all of the work of creating a brand voice, but it's a nice little propeller that'll get you further than if you're starting from square one.
Nice. I love it. I'm going to go check that out right away.
Yeah. I can't wait to see what you'll get. I have a few ideas after chatting with you. Yeah.
Okay. We'll have to connect after and close that loop.
And then if you want to DIY your copy, but you're just like, oh man, I'm really struggling. Like, I don't know where to put anything. So I developed a template shop and it's specifically for coaches and service-based businesses where I take you line by line on how to write your copy. So I have one for creating your brand voice, but my best one is definitely for web copy because I know websites can be hard. So just by listening to this episode, if you use the code KIM20, you will get 20% off the entire template shop. So if that sounds good to you, then definitely head over there to make writing a lot easier.
Yay, that's awesome. I will definitely put the links and that coupon code Kim20 in the show notes too, so that people
Yeah.
can easily find it. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for such a generous offer.
Of course. Yeah. And it couldn't be an easier coupon code. So it
Yes,
makes it
easy to
easy to remember. And then, yeah, if you just want to connect with me, I'm super casual. So you can just slide into my DMs on Instagram. It's at my right hand woman, right spelled like writing. And, or you can take a peek at my website. That's where I live because I love web copy. And that is myrighthandwoman.com. Again, right spelled like writing.
That's perfect. Okay, that's amazing. Thank you so much for all of this, Lucy. It's just been a pleasure having you on the show.
You too. It was great chatting with you.
Okay, well, I hope that you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. I would love to hear from you on this. Is copywriting something that you struggle with? Do you have trouble defining your own voice and writing copy that truly connects with your clients? Let me know in the comments below this video, or if you're listening to the audio of this episode, then find me on Instagram and let me know. I would love to continue the conversation about this. Okay, that is a wrap today. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you again very soon.